I hope you are having lots of fun trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show. Which brings up a point about me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner. Because I now have enough slaves to work for me where everyone else has nothing when they reach paradise. So they are afraid of death. I am not afraid because I know that my new life will be an easy one in paradise. Zodiac Killer. On July 4th, 1969, the second attack by the Zodiac Killer takes place. The shooter contacts 911 and confesses his activities after killing Mike Mageau and Darlene Farron in a Vallejo Lover's Lane. Farron dies from her wounds, while Mageau lives. A letter from the Zodiac is delivered to the San Francisco Chronicle 4 weeks later. The package contains an encrypted note and a threat that the Zodiac Killer will kill once more until the newspaper publishes a letter. The Vallejo Times and the San Francisco Examiner have both received similar demands in different encrypted letters. Soon after, Paul Avery, a crime reporter for the Chronicle, starts his investigation. Robert Graysmith, a political cartoonist for the Chronicle, notices the coded note. Eventually, a history teacher in Salinas, California cracks the encryption. There are still some unread letters, though, and Graysmith starts attempting to understand them, attracting Avery's attention. There are further symbols, as well as one that Avery claims is like a gun sight. Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were confronted and stabbed by the Zodiac Killer in September 1969 in Lake Berryessa in Napa County. The attack kills Shepard, but Hartnell is still alive. The Chronicle then receives a new letter from Zodiac, in which he refers to people as the most hazardous game of all. Robert immediately recognizes the phrase as being from a movie based on the novel The Most Dangerous Game. Paul Stein, a San Francisco taxi driver, is shot and dies shortly after in the Presidio Heights neighborhood. The case is sent to San Francisco police detectives Dave Toschi and Bill Armstrong, but they find the killer's behavior puzzling. Soon after, the Chronicle receives a fresh Zodiac letter, including a fragment of the taxi driver's bloody shirt. In the letter, the Zodiac also reveals his attack plan against city school buses. As they study the facts around Zodiac, Toschi and Armstrong quickly find themselves communicating with other investigators like Jack Mulanax in Vallejo and Ken Narlow in Napa. Narlow describes how a ranger unintentionally destroyed the Kappa murder scene, while the SFPD was able to obtain a partial fingerprint from the taxicab crime scene. They did discover wingwalker boot prints on the ground, though. These shoes could only be bought with a military ID. When Armstrong tries to interview Michael Mageau, the survivor of the Zodiac's second murder, Vallejo PD informs him that he is no longer in the area. Given that a large portion of sending tangible evidence must be done only by postal mail, the various police departments also encounter communication difficulties. Following the incident, Avery, Graysmith, Toschi, and Armstrong have their own private chats in which they speculate about the Zodiac's motivations. The two groups of men assume he is attempting to break his pattern because the cab driver was his first death that wasn't committed with a romantic partner. Soon after, the Zodiac calls a morning talk program and asks to meet with well-known attorney Melvin Bellew. Although it's believed to be the Zodiac making these calls, many speculate it to be a wannabe Zodiac. Sam, the caller, a man with a deep voice, phones in. Sam agrees to meet Melvin and suggests they go to a Daly City church. The caller was someone from a mental facility, and when Sam doesn't show up, Melvin and the SFPD race to the area. Even Brian Hartnell, who survived the third murder committed by the Zodiac, affirms that the voice does not belong to the man he met at Lake Berryessa. Another letter insulting the police and containing instructions for making an explosive device will shortly be delivered to the Chronicle. Following this, Avery and Greystone talk about how much they are interested in the letters. Greystone states that because of his interest in riddles, the task of cracking the Zodiac ciphers appealed to him. Additionally, he describes the several codes he discovered in the letters, including one known as the Zodiac alphabet. Melvin Belly receives a letter from the Zodiac for Christmas in 1969, and throughout the spring and summer of 1970, the Zodiac writes other letters to the Chronicle, once more mocking the police and taking credit for a number of crimes. As soon as Avery raises doubts about the Zodiac's veracity, the Chronicle chooses to stop publishing the letters. Graysmith is informed by Paul that the gun sight motif on the letters looks to have been taken directly from the logo for the Zodiac watchline. Avery receives a personal letter from the Zodiac and a piece of the bloody cab driver's shirt as rewards for writing several unfavorable pieces about the Zodiac. Paul meets with an unnamed source in Riverside, California in an effort to learn more about the Zodiac. Avery thinks he has discovered proof of the Zodiac's first murder victim from this, predating the 1969 shooting of Darlene Ferrin and Mike Mageau. Tashi and Armstrong are sent to Riverside to look into this. Although the evidence appears to be comparable, they disqualify it from being an exact match to their killer. Tashi, though, is enraged at how many viewers believe Paul Avery's claims. Many of the individuals who approached Tashi and the SFPD after reading Avery's piece claim to know who the Zodiac is. The interview with Arthur Leigh Allen sounds the most promising out of all the interviews. Then, Tashi, Armstrong, and Mulinax question Arthur, but they don't find anything specific. They speak with a number of Arthur's relatives who provide handwriting samples for analysis. Sherwood Morrill, a handwriting expert, examined the letters but found no correlations. Eventually, Arthur's family informs Tashi that he is relocated to Santa Rosa. The Santa Rosa PD issues a search warrant, so Tashi and Armstrong search Arthur's trailer. They discover several firearms and they quickly face Arthur when he gets home. Tashi is furious that his greatest lead didn't work out because after acquiring a new handwriting sample and looking at his prints, nothing about Arthur matches any of the data that Zodiac has on record. Tashi and his wife watch Dirty Harry in an effort to relax. When it's over, Tashi and Graysmith meet in the lobby. Robert promises Tashi he'll catch the Zodiac, but Tashi doesn't seem very confident. 1978. 4 years later, Graysmith has remarried and has started a family again during that period. Paul Avery, in the meantime, left the Chronicle and started working for the Sacramento Bee after his sanity took a plunge. When Bill Armstrong, Dave Tashi's partner, informs him that he is switching from the homicide department to the fraud department, Dave Tashi is taken aback. The Zodiac has not spoken during this time. Robert sees Paul and reveals his desire to write a book on Zodiac after Melanie Graysmith highlights all the Zodiac memorabilia he's accumulated over the years. Robert's expectations are dashed when Paul reprimands the interested man and claims that he no longer has any information on the killer. Then, Robert asks about Dave Tashi. Tashi, despite denying he can assist Robert, quietly advises him to contact Ken Narlow in Napa. Robert is given access by Narlow to the Napa police's evidence in the Mike Mageau and Darlene Ferrin case. The Zodiac might have been one of Darlene's fans. Robert goes on to say to Tashi, Darlene seemed to have a lot of admirers. Graysmith was more convinced that the murderer knew Darlene after hearing strange phone conversations with heavy breathing on the line made to several of her relatives the night she was killed. Robert insists that he must locate Darlene's sister, but Tashi also advises him to contact Melvin Belly. When Robert visits the lawyer, he has an unusual conversation with one of his housekeepers, during which she reveals that the Zodiac spoke to her. The Zodiac instructed the housekeeper that he had to kill that day because it was Mr. Belly's birthday, even though he wasn't at home. With the help of this evidence, Robert is able to focus on the days of December 18th through December 20th. Tashi advises him to contact the Department of Justice for more information, but he receives little assistance. Soon after, Bob receives a call from a man claiming that Rick Marshall is the true Zodiac and that Bob Vaughn has film canisters with proof that Rick is the Zodiac. Robert also visits Sherwood Morrill to discuss samples of his handwriting and fingerprints. During the conversation, Sherwood describes how Wallace Penny told him Rick Marshall was the Zodiac, stunning Robert by revealing that the same person who contacted Robert also spoke to Sherwood. When the SFPD receives its first Zodiac letter in 4 years, Tashi is summoned back there. Tashi is expelled from the murder section as a result of the suspicion that he forged the letter, which some believe Tashi did. Tashi tries to engage Robert in conversation, but Dave won't discuss Rick Marshall. Robert then meets Ken Narlow in Napa for a conversation. Narlow describes how he spoke with Rick Marshall but was unable to obtain any samples of his handwriting or fingerprints. Robert phones Morrill in an effort to locate Marshall and obtains Wallace Penny's contact information. Wallace sends Robert a flyer that he claims Rick designed for a theater showing silent films. Morrill investigates it and notes a few minor similarities to Zodiac, but he needs more details to fully analyze it. The matter has now taken over Robert's life. His wife takes their children and flees after he is fired from the Chronicle out of concern that the Zodiac may target their family. Robert's phone number has also been called by someone who then hangs up after exhaling heavily. Robert asks Bob Vaughn for assistance while also trying to locate Darlene Ferrin's sister Linda. When Robert describes the posters they are searching through for proof, Bob asserts that he drew all the posters, not Rick Marshall, despite the fact that Vaughn knew Rick Marshall many years ago when he worked as a theater projectionist. Robert hastily departs the area as he struggles with his current thoughts. Soon later, Robert visits Linda, Darlene's sister, who is incarcerated. Robert queries her in regards to a rumored painting party where a man was causing Darlene to feel nervous. Robert is certain that this was Rick Marshall, while Linda maintains that it was someone else by the name of Lee instead of Rick. The former homicide detective finally agrees to a meeting when Robert, who is convinced that this is Arthur Leigh Allen, hurries to Tashi's house in the middle of the night to tell him. The two proceed to a dinner where Robert identifies a number of potential connections between Arthur and the Zodiac, but Tashi maintains that he just has circumstantial proof. Since Arthur resided close to Darlene's place of business, some people even thought that the Zodiac might be someone she knew. Tashi, who claims he cannot support any of Robert's claims, urges him to finish his work on the Zodiac. Going back to December 1983, when Robert enters a Vallejo hardware store, Arthur Leigh Allen is standing there. Before Graysmith leaves the store, no words are spoken. Mike Mago meets with the police in 1991, 8 years later, and is shown a number of mug photographs. When asked which of the men had the greatest chance of being the Zodiac, he selects Arthur Leigh Allen. I think it's possible that the Zodiac Killer was never caught because he wanted to be remembered forever. Jeff Mudgett. The Zodiac Killer's case is a reminder that even the most heinous of criminals can evade justice. John Douglas, FBI profiler.